Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. It is coming up to mid-April and another set of releases has been announced, but this video is not actually going to discuss those releases per se. I will get to those releases, which are the Gemini Jets releases, in the next video. However, in this video I wanted to talk about something related to the releases, which is frankly pretty important, and that's the cost, the amount of money that these models are costing us when we buy them from wherever we're getting our fix from. And that is because I see that this latest set of Gemini releases has had a quite significant price increase on them. So I wanted to look at that price increase and kind of see whether it's justified, and then also have a look and see kind of what that means for you if you're buying Gemini releases in the next year. Now, before I get to that, obviously, please chuck a like on the video if you enjoy it and subscribe to the channel. I do loads of videos on various topics in 400 scale, and obviously follow me at Yesterday Airlines on Instagram and Facebook, and check out yesterdaysairlines.com where there is a ton of material related to the scale. But let's get on and check out what's going on with these latest Gemini releases. Okay, now, I often don't pay a great deal of attention to Gemini because I don't buy that many Gemini models, but obviously I understand that they're massively popular amongst a huge chunk of people, especially American collectors. And I still do buy a reasonable number of models from the United States, primarily because prices in the UK are a bit mental and the shops here are often not particularly good. We'll get to that. But nonetheless, I noticed that in this latest set of announcements, the prices have gone up. And they've seemingly gone up roughly $4 per model, no matter whether this is a narrow body or a wide body. So, for example, if we look at the March 2024 release of the Southwest Airlines 737-800 in the Battleborn scheme, then that has an MSRP. I'm getting all these figures incidentally from the Gemini Jets website themselves. That has an MSRP, a manufacturer's suggested retail price, of $52.95. But then if we look at the announced yesterday Mexicana 737-800, so effectively, same model just with different livery on it, then that now has an MSRP of $56.95, so a $4 increase. Also, if we look at an A321, let's pick, for example, the American Airlines PSA Retro from March. That, again, $52.95 is the MSRP for that. But now if we pick the American Airlines Allegheny Retro A321 for April, that has gone up again to $56.95. So once again, that $4 increase. And you can see the same thing if you look at the wide bodies, because if we check out the British Airways 777-300 ER from March, this is not the flaps down version, it's just the standard flaps version, then that has an MSRP of $63.95. And if we check out, again, the standard version of the KLM Orange that's just been announced, that's gone up to $67.95. So that is not an insignificant price increase. By my calculations, it's about 8% for one of the narrow bodies, and between 5 and 6% for that wide body 777. That is pretty high, considering that when I check inflation in the States, inflation is currently running around 3.5%, has been for the last year. So that is double the inflation rate increase that Gemini has put on these models. Now, I know inflation is higher elsewhere. I'm from the UK, and those idiots in the Tory party have tanked the economy not long ago, and our inflation rate went up above 10%, but even ours is falling back down to around 3.4%. So that is quite a high percentage increase. Now, these MSRPs are obviously prices that nobody actually pays because the retailers don't sell anything at that rate. But you can see the effect this is going to have on your pocket if you go and actually check out some retailers. So that's what I've done. I've looked at 3 of the largest retailers in the United States: Easy Toys, Jet Collector, and Waffle Collectibles. And I've compared their prices for those Southwest and Mexicana 737s and the British Airways and KLM 777s. So you can see the price difference between them. And it's pretty clear when you look at these figures that most of this MSRP price rise is being pushed to customers. Now that's understandable. Effectively, from the retailer's perspective, they're being charged more and they're just passing the cost on. What is also interesting here is that when you look at Waffle's prices, despite the fact that Gemini hate him and he's an unauthorized retailer and they moan about him on their website, his prices are actually lower than everyone else's. Maybe that's why they don't like him. But I also looked at how these prices are going to affect people outside of the US, and I picked Aviation Megastore from the Netherlands because, again, they're a big store, and secondly, because the UK stores are slow as hell to get their releases up on their site. So even though I could have looked at Air Spotters or Aircraft Model Store or Aviation Retail Direct, who also Gemini Jets in the UAE, none of them have got the new Gemini releases up yet. And frankly, when you look at their pricing, it's kind of all over the shop, which is taking the piss somewhat as well, because I know, and you know, that they're sold, these models, at a standard price. So they should reflect the same price across all 737-800 should be the same price, all 777 should be the same price. And they're not when you look at their websites. But that's another thing about UK stores. I've struggled with UK stores since I've been back. The only one that I really trust is Bedfordshire Diecast, but he does great stuff and at good prices, but he doesn't stock Gemini. Anyway, enough of that. But when you look at Aviation Megastore, again, their prices have gone up, and they're not gone up quite as much as they have in the States, but at the same time, their prices already are shockingly higher than American prices. If you think you got it bad in the United States, then check out those Euro prices, because when you look at €48.55 for that 737-800 at Aviation Megastore, that's like way over $50. That's like $52. So it's approaching nearly $8 or $9 more than it's costing an American to buy exactly the same model. And that's one of the reasons that I don't buy from Europe, because the prices are insane. And it's often cheaper just to buy from the States and get the things shipped over, which is crazy. But anyway, you can see anyway, clearly, looking at these prices, the impact this is going to have on you. Now, the elephant in the room here somewhat is that it may sound like I'm picking on Gemini Jets unfairly, and I don't think I am. Gemini, like everyone else, perfectly within their rights to raise their prices, and prices in 400 scale have gone up substantially in the past few years. So Gemini are not alone in doing this. I know NG have increased their prices as well. Having said that, when you compare now these new Gemini prices to the current NG pricing, you can see that they're actually pretty close together. I've often heard people say that NG's prices are a lot more expensive than Gemini's, and I've always kind of questioned that. But looking at the prices here, you can see that a lot of stores, they are more expensive. I've picked a couple of random NGs from the last couple of months, the Southwest Canyon Blue 737-700 and the, was it Canyon Blue? I can't remember anyway. The recent Southwest 73Gs and an American 777. And you can see that price-wise, they are more expensive than Gemini's Easy Toys and Jet Collector by about $5 with the new pricing. So the gap has been closed significantly. They are more expensive, but not by that much. When you look at Waffle, actually, interestingly, his NG prices are really good, much more competitive than the others, and they are the same now as Gemini. So that's really interesting. Basically, his prices are far and away the best. I don't know, if you're not buying your NGs from Waffle, I don't really understand it, because they're so much cheaper. I should say that I'm not getting anything from Waffle for this, and I don't even buy from Waffle very much, because getting stuff from the States is a pain. But, nonetheless, these prices are pretty damn good. Anyway, the key point here, I think, is that the gap is closed. It's fine for Gemini to raise their prices. Whether you think that's a really high price rise or an acceptable price rise, entirely up to you. I can't really comment. But I would, when I compare Gemini's products to NG, in my view, NGs are much better. So for like $2 or $3 or $5, I would go with the NG. And hell, if you're buying from Waffle, then they're the same price. So yeah, It's an interesting move by Gemini Jets. I can understand there are a lot of inflationary pressures out there in the world at the moment. Is this a good time to raise prices? Is it an acceptable time to raise prices? Do you think an 8% increase in prices is acceptable? Don't know. Don't know. I mean, these are all questions for you to think about. But I thought it was interesting just to discuss this, because it's not something, I have to say, that gets discussed a lot in 400 scale, the increase in pricing or the way prices vary across regions or across different retailers. So something that I noticed and thought, hey, this seems quite interesting, let's chuck a video together quickly. So I'll get on and have a look at this latest bunch of Gemini Jets in the next video, and to be honest, it's a good little set, but be aware, the prices have gone up, so it's going to cost you more for your models. That's it from yesterday's airlines for this video. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.